I'm not going to go into painting in any great detail because I've already sort of covered all that while I've been doing this car. I had this in bare metal and I really wanted to get an etch onto it just to protect it. But look what I've done, I've rushed it, and see this? Those wet areas, they're still wet. I painted earlier today, still wet. That is paint stripper. So that's unlike me to sort of have a stuff up. That's a huge stuff up. Well, the time's come. These have been annoying me for a little while, so the time's come to replace these light sockets. They're a bit manky and so forth. You can buy new ones. These are Nava replacements, H4 type, which is the same as seal beam. And I've run out of heat shrink tubing, so I bought another sort of small pack of that. And all told, that's about 14 bucks. They're pretty cheap, pretty reasonable to do. I guess the first thing we've got to do, though, is to take some of this insulation tape off. Oh, there's an earth there. That's for the Parker, I believe. And we're just going to sort of do each one as we need to. And it's not a bad idea when you're doing wiring like this is to leave them, we know the socket goes like that, but to stagger them. So, you know, we might cut this one a little bit shorter back here, just so where they're connected, they're sort of all sitting in the loom in different places like that, so they're not all together. So in essence, I guess we've got to start with this one here, the top one. We'll just cut that off. It's not a bad idea, just to do one at a time. That's actually the low beam one there. We don't need to have that labelled anymore. And that would be this one here. So we've just got to sort of peg out where they go. Yeah, I believe that's cool. So these aren't mine, these belong to work, I've got to take them back. So I'll just strip the wire there and here. You can use, I normally use just side cutters and stick them on like that and push them off. You can do that, don't use your teeth though. Let's get a bit of heat shrink tubing. Hopefully this isn't too big. I'll just whack it over the top. Heat up the conductor and run the solder in. And you can just slide the heat shrink tubing over, and you can just use the side of the iron, just run it over, just shrink it down. Alternatively, you can use a cigarette lighter. I actually prefer to use a cigarette lighter. And that'll give you a nice tight insulated joint. So we'll do the rest of them. We should be good to go. And there we go, that's nice and neat. They're all sort of staggered. And we've got the two earths going in there, that goes off to the other light. Once that's taped up, that'll sit behind there nicely for a far more reliable plug. Well, we've got these wires sorted out. That plug's all on. I've actually taped over the shrink wrap. The shrink tube, you don't need to do that, but I just want it to be tidy. And these are the connectors for the indicators. And they sort of tuck in behind here. So that side's done there. This side here is as well, but I haven't yet sorted out these ones for the indicators. They've sort of been taped together and look a bit manky. A couple of crimp terminals, I hate those things. But we can check the integrity of this by actually powering it up. So if I pull the lights on, have we got lights? Oh yeah, there's lights there. I'll just hit that high beam there. We got the high beam on. Should hear a relay. That's the high beam relay for the driving lights powering up. And we can check that with a test light. Put a test light in, we haven't got any light there. Hit the switch. And there we go. Let there be light. So that circuit's all working well now. So we now have absolutely no use for this rubbish. Right, before we put the front end or all the stuff back on the front of the car, we need to do a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is stick in a transmission cooler. Now this is a PWR one, great bit of kit. It comes with its own fitting kit. And this is a heavy duty V8 type. So there's our kit there. It's got a little leaflet about it, some hose clamps, and also the fitting kit to hold it onto the radiator. 5/16 type hose. These traditionally, this size, which is 280 by 255 I think, actually in standard trim comes with a 3/8 barb. Now I wanted the 5/16 one, because it's the same as the diameter of the hoses down here, but I've got to sort of stick it in underneath, which might be a bit tricky once we get the driving lights and grills around and all that sort of stuff. So I've got to sort of stick it here in a position where these hoses aren't going to kink. Now, I've used one of these on the Galaxy, the big block car I had, and it was fantastic. I don't like using the coolers in the radiator because I've known them to rupture in the past and send coolant into the transmission, which fries your transmission. And there's various sizes available. They call this one the Pro heavy duty one with the 5/16 bar, so it's bigger than the standard 8-cylinder one. I'm using this by itself. There's going to be no cooling done inside the radiator tank at all, and they can just be blocked off. So these are great. They're Australian made. They're a lovely bit of engineering, and they're nice and slim as well. And they offer far more protection in terms of cooling, because they have a sort of a radiator setup, which each of these parts here cool like a normal or conventional radiator in a car. They're not just like a piece of loop of sort of steel tubing with fins over it. It's a proper cooler, so we'll stick that in now. So I've got these foam pads, self-adhesive things. I'm going to try and get them off now. And what we want to do is we want to isolate the cooler from the radiator core itself. So I'm just going to put them over each of these so it's sort of padded against the core, like this. We'll do the other two down in these bottom bits here, and just verify that they go through nicely. And then we have the hoses attached. These, it's worth getting these things. It's worth getting this kit because they have the solid type hose clamp on them, rather than these ones, which the worm sort of goes through the other side of the hose clamp. The reason for that is these act a bit like a cheese grater if you tighten them up. Too tight, they actually chew into the outer sheath of the hose. So they come with these other ones, which are much, much better. They're sort of fuel rated, if you know what I mean. So we can stick this up now. Hopefully it doesn't scream too much from the front. You can get these in black. I just sort of got the silver one. I don't think it's too big of a deal. I didn't want to paint it. I'm just going to put it on like that. It's nice and shiny anyway. And just find a decent spot where it doesn't look like it's going to chew out, or at least kink the hoses. I might move it over a little bit there. Just plonk them through like this, and that will hold it where we need it. It can stay there. Now these are sort of cut square, so they can go against the core, and this bit here goes on the back. And once you get these on, you've got to make sure you've got it exactly where you want it, because once you get those on, you can't get them off. There we go. And I reckon that looks pretty good. I've also put these driving light brackets on. These things look as though, this one looks as though it's going to be pointing out a bit too much that way. So I'll put the driving lights on, I'll switch them on and just see where they're pointing. If this needs to be bent back, the easiest thing to do is put a ring spanner over here and push it back this way, but that's bad news because you're likely to, this is likely to stay straight or stay the way it is, and it's likely to buckle the radiator support panel, which means paint will crack off and all this sort of stuff. So that needs to be adjusted. It has to be done in a vise. Well, we've started on this. I've just sort of screwed it down to these this horse arrangement, this trestle arrangement, just so it doesn't move around while I buff it. And what I thought I'd do is sort of buff these bits here, and maybe down the sides as well, before I mask off and start etch priming in here and around the headlights. I'm just sort of cleaning. This is some dirty thinner that I had for the from the painting I've been doing, and I just kind of like throwing things out like this because I always use it for cleaning up bits and pieces. So it's just a matter of going around, getting the old paint off, and then our etch will sort of adhere a little bit better. So I'm just using a pad with a bit of polishing compound on it. OH&S is not friendly today because I haven't got my boots on, just in bare feet. Oh, Mr. Whippy's coming. I've just got this pinstriping tape, painter's tape, and it gives you a pretty good idea straight away if you're on the right track or not. You can get it nice and straight. The good thing about this is you can use it for things like around the headlights, and you don't get that horrible hex look you do with sort of thicker tapes that you can't sort of wrap around corners nicely. This is just a bit of GM satin black. I haven't even reduced it, it just comes like this. It's really, really good for guide coats, stuff like that. And it just dries as sort of a semi-flat. I'm using David Morris's camera cover, lens cover for the lid. Right, well there it is all done. I'm just going to unwrap it and see how it's turned out. I've grabbed some of the silver here, mixed it with the satin black and come up with this gunmetal sort of colour for the grille. When taking this off, you sort of lift it at the right angle to it, just on the off chance we get any paint lifting. It shouldn't, but all things considered, it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. Well, if you don't like it, that's fair enough, but I'm really happy with that. We've got silver taped up across the top. I've just left these bits polished. There's a little bit of fine tuning to do, but I reckon that's pretty good. It's taken me 2 hours. It doesn't look original, but then I'm going to give it a toss. And you can sort of see that'll sit something like that. It's a shade darker, which is what I wanted, and I reckon that looks the business. So it's nice and tidy. Sorry, it's got a nice tape line. I've left those bits at the edges. They get hidden, I think, anyway, but happy with that. 2 hours it took. I'm having trouble making this bloody thing fit. Just going to hang it up here to begin with. I think that guard's an XY one. The headlight mounts all different, so I've sort of been playing around with that. Trying to get it to measure up equally with the other side. And not having much success, I'm going to muck around with that. Pop a screw in this side to hold this one down, because it's the original one. That's got to go over like that. That's it. Okay. That's all sitting kosher. That's all sitting kosher. And if I check the grill, I'm just having all sorts of trouble getting this thing central because that grill goes against. You see, there's a bloody great difference there. Hang on a minute. Oh yeah, no difference at that. Shouldn't go to finger width. No, that's cool. That's good. Alright, pressing on. Right, well I'm putting this grill surround on. Should have learnt my lesson when I rushed the bonnet, not to rush this, because I actually forgot to paint in behind here, so I've just sort of blown a bit of silver behind there, took it off and did that again. Having a little bit of trouble getting it even in terms of distance where the indicator light finishes and where the grill surround begins. And also don't forget that this is an XY guard. and I'm having a little bit of trouble as well fitting this headlight bucket up to be the right distance in. So all this sort of stuff's going to scream if it's not dead level, but we're slowly making headway. Alright, so we've got our headlight buckets all in, we've got the wiring, a nice new wiring ready to go. We're ready to put the headlights in now, and the ones I've chosen are these original type Lucas ones that's upside down. These ones here now, these are period correct, and they've got that nice rounded profile. Now the best sorts of lights to put in here would be a halogen one, a retrofitting type one. A lot of halogen ones have a flat lens and look terrible on classic cars, so I've gone for these. I can change them over for more modern lights later. But a lot of these ones also have a window sort of cut in the bottom for parkers. You can see that dark spot there. They're the later type ones, and they have sort of a suction cup type fitting for parkers. So this one on this little MG I've got to change over. I don't really like that terribly much. So I've been careful to get the right ones that don't have that window in them. So fitting's pretty easy. We just plug it in, and then it'll sit in the right place. It sort of locates protrusions on the back of the glass, and of course then we've just got these lovely little chrome bezels to go over them, which sort of fix like that. And I'll leave that surround off for now because I want to sort of do a tentative alignment on them. Got our wires here for the indicator, the left hand indicator, and the parker there ready to go. So we'll just do the other side. Another thing I want to check, while I'm aligning these, I'm just going to align these tentatively, because these lovely driving lights, and I've got to put the right plug on and so forth. I haven't got the grill in yet, but I just want to plonk them down, and I just want to see the relationship between these two, how they sort of show up on a sheet, because I think the other one's sort of facing out too much. It might be facing onto incoming traffic, which isn't a great thing. Well, you can see the car starting to look a little bit more together. I've got the headlights and driving lights in, and I've done something I want to sort of tentatively aim them, but I haven't got the apparatus to do it. It's a machine with a window in the front. It lines up parallel to the radiator support panel, and you sort of look, and it shows you where the light's supposed to be as opposed to the part that turns up. And you can do it in a garage with about 25 feet or so. I haven't got the equipment, so I've just done something very dodgy, and I've got a sheet hanging up with a couple of spots on it. It'll show me in a ballpark way sort of where it's meant to be, so when it has its roadworthy it can be adjusted fairly quickly. I'm just going to adjust them up if I can see where the adjuster is. Where is it? Adjust it out. So that's probably about right there. Now I have to raise it up. Just roughly, it's only very rough. We'll do it there for now, and the other side's fairly low, so we'll do that now. With the driving lights on, what I'm really worried, I'm not worried so much about the height of them. I'm worried about whether they're pointing too far out in case the driver's one, or in the case of the driver's one, it's sort of coming into the high beam area a bit too much. And what I'm sort of a little bit concerned about is that's going to sort of shine into oncoming traffic. So we can see there, it's a good beginning point. The high beam and driving lights are sort of lined up in a very rudimentary way, I should say. This is not a roadworthy sort of safe way of doing it, but at least I can see that the adjustment's going to be minimal to get it right. And so now I can sort of put the grill on. Now everything's lining up properly, except I'll put this in here. We're sitting up a tiny bit where those little brackets are for the driving lights, so I might have to get a rat tail file and just take a tiny little bit out. It's only going to be minimal, whatever it is. So we need to make a little witness mark. I'm just starting with a very small rat tail file, and I'll just clean up with a slightly larger one. And that might even be sufficient, just enough to get it off that that bracket, just to let it drop down a slight amount. And we're going to check it against the car. And these little clips sort of just slide into the driving light bracket and hold the grill in like that. And these are just the old ones, I haven't bothered getting new ones. These ones are alright when I pull them out. And these lights come with a set of cup washers. They don't come with a lock washer. I'm going to put a lock washer on. So we just slide them in, put the cup washer. I'm going to put a 5/16 lock washer on there. And then we can just tighten them up, aim them, and we're good to go. Right, we're going to leave it there. The front's all on, lights are working. Still got to put the horns on yet, haven't done that yet, but that can sort of come later. The next video is going to be about finishing what we started on the doors. We've got to put these belt mouldings in, the windows in, quarter windows in the front, rubbers, Bailey channels, that sort of thing, and then it's going to be all about the headlining. I've got to get the headlining in, and soon after that the glass needs to go in there, and then we can sort of look at the fun stuff of fitting out the interior. So that's where we're at now, to date. I hope you've enjoyed it. See you later.